what we mean by truth is an accord. It's a correspondence between the knower and the reality of the thing known, right? So the thing known, the way it exists in the world, becomes the standard by which our ideas are measured. We can't just think about reality however we want and say that it's true.
Mhm.
If it is true, what we mean by true is that my mind, the things in my mind, the ideas in my mind correspond with the way the reality of the actual thing. And then we said there are challenges to that. Coherentism is a challenge to that that fails because it reduces to correspondence. Scientism is a challenge in that it would make science and science alone the sole bearer of truth. And we said that that was false because of his self-refuting. It's actually a philosophical statement, right?
Mhm.
We said that one of the big challenges to human knowing, the objectivity of human knowing, is historical skepticism. And we said that historical skepticism is a pseudo problem because it's also self-refuting. It doesn't get off the ground, and that when it comes to sense skepticism, the the intellect, because we have two different knowing powers, the intellect is able to correct for distortions in perception via more comprehensive sense data, right? So when we affirm that yes, objective truth is knowable, and that what we mean by truth is correspondence, and then we look at all the challenges to those two positions, we see that those challenges fail, and we are rationally it's rationally acceptable to affirm truth is objectively knowable.
Yeah, so truth is that which corresponds to reality. So
Mhm.
it's not what we think it is. It's not what our feelings tell us it is. It's not what our emotions tell us it is. It's not what feels good. It's that which corresponds to reality. And so truth is not what our brains want to tell us it is. It's what actual reality tells us it is. And so what is truth tends to be in our culture so distorted because of our postmodern thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And as Frank Turek always says, truth by definition is exclusive as well. That's another corollary here or another aspect of it because um, two plus two is four. So that shuts out three and five. It's exclusive. Truth is, like you said, that which corresponds to what is really real. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, or like Norman Geisler used to say, truth is telling it like it is, basically.
Yes, truth is telling it like it is. That's right. And so, truth about reality is knowable. And part and parcel of this, as well as the issue about absolute truth and relativism. Absolute truth, relativism.
Yeah, so and that seems to be just a really driving force in our culture right now. Even the work that I do with teenagers is this idea that your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth, but that's not really livable when we think about it. I think it's the major main ways that we demand absolute truth is in health, in our finances, and in our relationships, right? So when we go to the bank and we want to take out money and if the teller doesn't like what you're wearing that day and she says no, you don't have any money in your bank account, and you've got money in your bank account, absolute truth says you have money in your bank account. And so we don't live in a way that says that your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth, although it may feel good to our feelings, and people tend to say, I'd rather live that way because I'm happier that way. That's not how reality is. And it's the same way with health. We don't go to the doctor and say, I'm fine if we have cancer, because it makes us feel better to say I'm fine, when the reality is that your body has cancer cells. And then in relationships as well, you don't want someone who you love cheating on you. And then if you ask them, are you cheating on me? And they're saying that's not cheating, there is absolute truth. Absolute truth is what we demand in those ways. But then when it comes to things like, transgenderism, LGBTQ,
Right.
love is love, and even really you see it a lot with the woke agenda today with the racial tensions that we have. This idea that people of color somehow have a moral high ground, and so they get to determine what's true. This is not livable. We don't live practically our day-to-day lives with an idea that truth is relative. Yeah, I think in everyday ministry, when it comes to this idea of the law of non-contradiction, I really have found that in talking to kids. And the law of non-contradiction says that both A cannot be both A at the same and non-A at the same time the same way. And so a statement and its direct denial cannot both be true at once, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's astonishing to me how much everyday thinking, even for believers, contradict this basic law of logic. There is this idea, and I think it's this postmodern sort of influx of thinking, this way of not thinking logically, that has infiltrated our young people to the extent that they have, when you say things like that, they just give you a blank stare.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't realize that we, once again, we don't live our lives like that. Living your life that contradictions can be true is not livable.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. First question, we're going to talk about the 12 points to show Christianity is true, but
Yeah, absolutely. We know truth every day from our world that we experience things in, and we're able to make statements that correspond to the way that things are in the world, and that's really what constitutes truth. And of course, Christianity is going to make some truth claims. One, a truth claim about truth itself, not just that it's knowable, but in the sense that truth must be absolute. And basically that means that it eliminates any relativity notion of truth, that truth cannot be something that's relative. It has to be something that is absolute. The notion of a relative truth is just a fiction. It's just an idea. It just doesn't obtain in the real world. Now, we might struggle to arrive at what the truth is, but that doesn't take away from its objectivity. We can reason in terms of a deductive type argument for certain things, or an inductive type argument that would lend to its probabilistic nature or something like that. But and of course, there we would want to reason that it's highly probable, highly reasonable, as you stated, with regards to it. And other things would be a deductive type reasoning for human beings, where it must be true. If all the premises are true, they correspond to the world, and that would give us a conclusion that is true in an absolute sense. Given that we can reason about things in the world, reason even about the past, reason even about God and his existence, this lays the groundwork that when we make those conclusions, they're true either inductively to some degree, or they are demonstratable.
beautiful. Thank you for a concise but sufficient explanation. Point 2 of the 12 points that show Christianity is true says that the opposite of true is false. Now, here we bring in yet some more logic.
The opposite of true is false. You might think, that's just plain to everybody, but it's extremely important that if you're going to claim that Christianity is true, then that means that everything opposed to Christianity is false. And that stands for every religion and every truth claim. It isn't the notion that even something that is wide open, like pluralism, you think, oh, it incorporates everything. No, it doesn't incorporate non-pluralism. Every truth claim is narrow. So no matter what the claim is, if it's a truth claim, it excludes everything that opposes it. That's the opposite of it. So in that way, or in that sense, you've got to be able to explicitly state the law of non-contradiction, which, by the way, is completely unavoidable. If you make a truth claim, everything opposed to that is false, if indeed your truth claim is true. Everybody that's making truth claims, that's in the game of making truth claims, is indeed using the law of non-contradiction. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing about the law of non-contradiction. I remember seeing on a video one time Ravi Zacharias at one of his speeches, and a Buddhist guy challenged him about Buddhist logic, but Zacharias explained to him, you're actually using logic to defend your Buddhist logic, so you can't have it both ways, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I might have butchered the point he was trying to make, but I think we see the point. The opposite of true is false. This is the law of non-contradiction. It is, as you said, Dr. Potter, inescapable. It is one of the fundamental laws of the universe, and you cannot escape it. You can't even make a statement without utilizing it, really.
That's right. Exactly.
Truth about reality. Truth is implied, as Geisler says, it's implied in the 9th commandment, don't bear false witness. But let me ask you, Phoenix, tell my listeners the proper answer, correct answer to the question, can truth be known? And, what's wrong with relativism?
Wow, there's so much to unpack in even that question that I think a lot of people don't entirely realize. For example, can truth be known? Yes, absolutely, truth can be known, but then the question is, in what capacity can we know? We're never going to fully, especially people will argue, well, maybe you can know the truth about tangible things you can pick up and hold and study, things you can put under a microscope, but you'll never fully know the truth about morality or about the nature of God, things like that. And we would say, well, you don't need to know the entire truth in order to grasp some truth, in order to grasp enough truth to know that the Christian worldview is the best suited to make sense of the reality we find ourselves in. So yeah, truth can absolutely be known. It's just a matter of how much certainty you require to accept certain things. Some people will go all the way to say, wow, you can never really fully know that the apple is real. If an apple is really true, if it corresponds to reality, to what is. I actually thought that was the direction you were going to take it when you said, well, what is the definition of truth? We would say the definition of truth is that which corresponds to reality, what is around us. Truth is the language that we use to describe what is. So, yeah, that's the big debate, is how much you need to be able to verify before you can call it truth. We would say, actually, not that much. You can know a great deal and to get by. We all do it. We're all functioning somehow, even if we don't have omniscience the way God does. And then what's the problem with relativism? The whole thing contradicts itself, doesn't it? You can't have two people in the same room saying that, well, my truth is this glass jar is red and my truth is this glass jar is purple. One of you is wrong or both of you are wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, in a case like that, we all tend to get along because, well, no one really cares if you have a different view of a color jar, a color house, even something small like what's the actual best flavored ice cream, things like that. We can all live and let live, and that's fine. But it becomes a real point of contention when we step into really, really important issues like law, morality, God. Now we have a problem because actually we have contradictory views, and people who say, for example, well, most religions basically say the same thing. It's completely false. Most religions have commonalities on the fringes about being kind to people and doing what's right, although we disagree on the standard of what's right. But when it comes to the core essentials of how we even know what's right, how we even know who we are, what we are, our connection to God and the divine, as some religions will call it, we entirely disagree. And that has major consequences as it trickles down to how we live out our lives. So relativism, it's all well and good at a very, very superficial level. But when it comes to something that really matters, like eternity and how we live and where our hope lies, they contradict. And it leaves everybody just swimming in a sea of murkiness. And it's not practical. You can't function that way.
Yeah, brilliant. Very good. And your analogy with the glass jar in the room or whatever made me think of, the issue of mathematics. 2 + 2 is 4. Truth by definition is exclusive. 2 + 2 is never 5. There's no other option. It excludes 3 and 5. Sorry, guys, you're out. 2 + 2 is 4.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, isn't it interesting that Christ calls himself the truth? Everybody, one of the greatest objections against Christianity is its exclusivity in nature. But if you truly hold the path that is true, that is the 2 + 2 = 5, then by default, everything else is false. This isn't a negotiable. And so I just think it's it confirms what we already know about the Christian view of life. And it's just so beautiful that even Christ himself describes himself as the truth. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so this is point number one of truth that show Christianity is truths, 12 truths, 12 points that show Christianity is true. This segues into point number two. The opposite of true is false. Again, this is clear logic. This is reality. It's inescapable. But this, it involves the law of non-contradiction.
Mm.
But you mentioned religions a moment ago, and as Geisler says, all religions cannot be true because they teach opposites. And that's the case because of the law of non-contradiction. And he says, as a matter of fact, just compare, for instance, Christianity and Islam. Yes, they have similarities. They are religions. They talk about a God, but they differ on 6 basic core teachings: God, humanity, Jesus, death of Christ, Bible, and salvation. And if they differ, then, somebody's wrong. That's just the truth of it.
Right. Somebody's wrong or both of them are wrong. But there is no situation where both of them are right. And that is not a bigoted view. That's not a religious view. That is a secular, neutral, logical view.
Self-evident truth exists. Truth corresponds to reality. Truth can be known. And the point of this, and of course, he and Turek, Dr. Frank Turek, kind of tightened it up in the 12 points. But any of these, if you deny them, you're actually affirming them. Like if you say, there are no truths, it's true there is no truth. Well, that's a contradiction.
That's right.
Truth corresponds to reality. If you say, no, truth doesn't. Here's the way things are. It's not the way things are. Truth doesn't correspond. That's a contradiction.
Okay, you will want to be sure you watch the next video in this series on the 12 points that show Christianity's true. I think it'll be a challenge for you, an encouragement, and a blessing to you. Be sure to place any comments below and, get in on the conversation about these 12 points. Be sure to like and subscribe and share this with others on your social media. Okay, be blessed. Bye-bye.